What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Focused Free Fit. We got a special show today. We've got Mr. Petar Krastev, and I probably didn't say his last name as well as I should have, but welcome, man. Nice to have.
Thanks, Frank. It's great to be here.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So today's going to be interesting because I think that there's some pieces, some nuggets that the audience will be able to take away. I think one, we can talk a little bit about some business. Hopefully we talk a little bit about fitness, right? And we might learn some things from your past, which we do a lot on this podcast because we've all got a story. But I'm excited to have the conversation. So one of the traditions we have here is kind of giving everybody an idea of what it was like growing up. Where did you come from? What's your story, growing up? And we usually try to do that to kind of see if there's any relation to like growing up and experiences we have and what relations we can make from that to where people are now. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how things started for you, because I think it'll be powerful.
Yeah, why not? Let's start there from the past. To be honest, just to tell you now that my story is very, very normal. When I shared my story first, prior to sharing it, it was on a big stage online with a huge audience. It made me cry, and then I got a lot of feedback from people, and that's the moment when I started sharing it a lot, and I realized a lot of the people live through these things. And I thought my story is unique. I thought I'm living in this place that the most horrible life, the most horrible things happen to me. And then I realized shit happen in everyone's life, and I think they definitely are what makes us who we need to be in future. And anyone who is successful right now gotten to a point where he has what he wants in life for most of it. He's been through something. He's been through something that made him that person, because it takes a lot of qualities that somebody who hasn't been tested in life that just doesn't have. Yeah.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Let's go down to when I was a kid, just the most average kid. Actually, I was below average, quite a lot below average. Very much the most bullet kid. I think I had a classmate who was more bullet than me, and it was me on a second place or a third place. That's how I was growing up. I used to hate going to school. I was always weak, always funny looking. And maybe at the age of 16 is when I got overwhelmed with just doing nothing about it, and I started lifting weights just to gain some size, which did help. And I think that's when I first developed my relationship. I started my relationship with fitness and health. That's at the age of 16. But unfortunately, I didn't take it serious as any kid at that age would. I was living in a place where there's a lot of drugs, a lot of criminals, and it was a criminal place. That's in Varna, Bulgaria. Varna, Bulgaria. Yeah. So very, very tough place to grow up. Now it's changed, but it wasn't back then. There was gangs on the streets. There was fights daily. There was all sorts of stuff, and I was living in it. I wasn't that much complaining, but I did get involved with the wrong things, with drugs, with the wrong people, which practically destroyed my life. Really, my potential at that point. It made me spend all my energy and focus on things that are just hurting me, and that carried on for a few years. At the age of 22, I think, is when a key moment in my life happened, for which right now I'm very grateful. But it cost me so much pain in my life, and that was a relationship that I started. It was a woman that I just saw on the streets passing through in front of our shop where I was working, and I actually had a group of friends with me, and I told them, "Look, she has a nice ass, and I'm gonna bang her and all that."
And that was all it took.
That is all it took, and I actually did it. I was very proud of myself. I went out with her like in 2 days, no time at all. Job done. But unfortunately, the wrong woman, and I was too young to see, too stupid. She was older than me. a few years. And 1 month into the relationship, she told me, I have to tell you something. And I was like, what? What can be so bad? And she said, I have a kid. And I was 22 years old boy who just been taking drugs and thinking he runs the city, but actually knows absolutely nothing about life. And I was thinking, that's a kid, it shouldn't be that bad. And I want to be a man. So if I'm gonna be a man, I'm not gonna run from a kid. Like, I'll take her with the kids and we'll be okay. And then all the shit from her toxic past revealed, and her toxic personality too, and became the most toxic relationship that I've ever seen. It was very close to what I've seen Johnny Depp go with this Amber Heard.
Amber
It
Heard.
was
Yep.
it was that sort of
Yeah.
shit. It was
Yeah.
mental. And like one year into the relationship, after working all sorts of jobs and working in the night overnight in the streets, selling drugs really to pay the bills, I got an opportunity to leave the country, to go to the UK at a car wash just to wash cars. The place was apparently secured. I had a place to live, and a job that was supposed to pay money. So we did everything we could so I can leave. My mother gave me 500 euros. I took the money, bought the tickets, took 10 euros in myself, gave the rest to my girlfriend so she can pay the bills, and took off with 10 euros in my pocket and a bag of old clothes to Luton, midwinter or beginning of winter. And 2 weeks into that job, that guy was actually kind of bankrupting. His business was failing at that point. I ended up owing him money for the rent because the job he gave me wasn't making any money for me. So I ended up staying at his place and he wanted to charge me. So I left that place. I went to another place just like that, but worse. It was the closest version to modern slavery that I've seen in my life. With a couple guys from Kosovo, in Luton. They have this car wash. It's still there. And I thought many times I'll drive through the car wash with a Lamborghini or something just for the sake of it and to, you know, but I'm not that kind of person. I never did it. They treated me really bad there. Sorry. So they treated me really bad. And a couple weeks after, I had to run to apply for other jobs to keep growing, to be able to pay bills and so on. And because I found a job, without getting into the too many details, when I found the job, they actually kicked me out because I left the workplace so I can apply for the other job and I get tested and so on. So they kicked me out in the streets literally, and that's how the shit really started. That was midwinter. Had no place to live. I ended up living on the streets for a few days. Then quickly, I tried to find a place to live. One woman helped me, gave me a place to live for a few weeks, but I couldn't stay there for too long. And I used my safety net. So that's a good story here for a lot of you who make plans for emergency situations. I strongly advise you not to do that, because we end up living with knowing that we can always pull that urgent emergency situation plan and fix everything, and we don't live up to the standards that we have to because we have an emergency plan. So my emergency plan, I created it maybe at the age of 18. I said, if something happens, I'm living in a very poor country. If I pile up a lot of debt, I can't pay the debt, I can't make money, I will leave for a country that has a higher standard. I will rent a garage for a minimal cost. I will live in a garage. I will I will work a job for a minimal salary or whatever salary I can get with the small skills that I have, and I will save the money from the rent practically. So that happened. I ended up going there. That was my worst fear. I was kind of thinking, I hope I never get there. I hope I never get there. All my life I spent thinking, I hope I never get there. And I ended up just there. And that happened with the relationship too. My biggest fear was to be cheated on, because I had a girlfriend who cheated on me just before this one. And I was thinking, this is very serious. If she cheats on me, that's going to destroy me. And I was always living with these fears. And believe it or not, I spent living in 2 years in this garage, 2 years almost. Then 2 years in a basement of a laundry shop.
So you
And
went,
slowly,
just to make sure I understand. So you had somebody help you, but you had to move out in a couple weeks. So you found a garage you could live in, and you had lived
I
in
did.
that garage in the UK for a year or so, and then you moved to the basement of a laundry facility.
Yeah. And
Okay,
all this
gotcha.
time, I was just working jobs.
Gotcha.
First, it was Subway. I was promoted as a manager there very quickly because I was working harder than anyone in the city. Then,
Probably, I get it.
yeah. Then I found another job in Amazon during this period as a driver. I was promoted there too as a supervisor very quickly again because of the same reason. But life was hard, and that was the most miserable period of my life. I was isolated. I I lost all the relationships that I had in Bulgaria with friends, even with my family. My parents' health was worsening. My mother had to go to hospital regularly for checks because of the stress that I caused her. They don't even know the whole story. I never actually sat down and told them what actually happened to me.
You mean after
They
you
just know.
left Bulgaria?
Yeah, yeah, they don't know shit. They still don't know. And I've been sharing this story publicly, but I never actually sat down with them to tell them, look, this is what actually I went through.
Are
They
they
just
still
know I
around?
changed. There, yeah,
Okay,
and they're
so your
fine.
parents are still around. You just haven't. You've talked to them, but you just haven't told them what happened once you left Bulgaria.
Yeah, they
Okay,
don't know shit. I
gotcha.
just felt like if I share it with them, they will get so hurt.
Why do
Yeah,
you
it
feel
was
like they would be
dangerous. I
hurt?
could lose them. Well, my father and my mother's health was worsening because of the stress, knowing that I'm struggling. They knew I'm struggling and I'm going through hard periods. But if they actually knew how hard it was, that would have potentially killed them. It was very tricky thing to do.
Yeah,
So I never told them. I never told them, even until today. I think they'll probably find out one day.
but they would be. But
So
they're happy
that's
where you are.
they became happier recently when they saw my success and that I pulled shit off and what I said I'm gonna do, I actually did it. It took them some time. It took them some time, but they and yeah, this was my life until the age of 27 or so, and then one day after 4 years into this relationship, after like living absolutely miserably in this place in Hemel Hempstead, one day I go to work and I look at my Facebook, and in Facebook I see a photo of her, my girlfriend, and another guy uh, just hugging and all that. And I got really pissed off. I called her right away, very angry. I was very, very angry. And she said something stupid. She said, I'm in love with him. And I hung up the phone. And 10 years anger. And then the rest was excitement. I just got out of the most toxic thing that nearly killed me. I don't know how I survived the whole shit. Now I made it through. To make it through, I had to work my ass off. I helped her practically keep her daughter, something that nobody in her family could do. I helped her fix her teeth. She had a very serious condition. She was about to lose her teeth if we didn't do what I did. So I did the impossible for her, and nobody believed that that can be done. I personally wasn't sure if I can do it. I never knew I can work so hard and I can be so dedicated for so many years and sacrifice so much for anything at all. I wasn't that person. I was always a quitter and somebody who is looking for comfort. So I did things that were practically impossible before that in my mind. And then getting out of this relationship, that was like a set of skills unlocked. Now it's me, blank canvas, my life alone, and all these skills that nobody else has. Actually, everybody has them, but people don't know about it. And that's what then built me up to get to where I am today. I started another business with a friend just after I broke up with her. That business fell apart 2 years later because we split up. He wanted to do different things, and unfortunately, I couldn't maintain it alone. And shortly after that, like 6 months after that, I decided to dedicate my life to something, and I never quit again, because that was one of the fundamental problems in my business endeavors, that I was quitting when it was getting hard, and I couldn't afford to quit. I was already at the age of 28, so I can't quit again midway. I would be like, what, 30 years old, no money, living in a foreign country, no wife, no future. That was a hard no for me. So that's when I really said, I'm never gonna quit again. And I will do something, and I picked sports. I picked calisthenics as a sport, and that practically led me into the whole health and fitness industry. And a lot of good things happened to me. I found God then. That really healed me, helped me overcome all my addictions and all my negative habits, and helped me get rid of a lot of negative people from my surroundings, and at the same time opened doors for me. And I'm where I'm right now, which is a very nice, thriving coaching practice for health and fitness. We have a growing community. We do annual retreats. Um, it's exciting. Life is good now, and I just came back actually home in Bulgaria after 10 years of living outside of the country. So that's
That's
my story.
that's exciting. Good for you. I mean, it's got to be how amazing. What did you feel when you were coming back to Bulgaria? When you came back for the first time after 10 years, what were the feelings that you were feeling?
Well, I did come back a few times before, right? I was
Oh,
coming and going, but just for a week, just
gotcha.
so I see them, I do something.
Okay.
So it's not like I was completely missing, but I didn't have any relationships when I came back, like friends.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone, and the feeling was like, um, it was just about time, to be honest. It wasn't like I was super super excited and super super happy, because I paid the price.
Sure.
Sometimes you chase something so hard, you work so hard for something, and at the beginning you feel like, yes, if I get it now, I will be just so so happy.
Hmm.
But you stick long enough in the chasing, and when the thing happens, you will say it was about time. So that was me. It was about time, but I was happy as well.
Yeah. So if you look back at that time, I if I'm relating what your story to anybody else, the question that I see is, if I'm struggling, and there's people again that are going to listen to this, and they're going to be struggling, they're going to have, a tough time in their life for whatever, right? Might be girl or guy problems, might be job problems, might be health problems, whatever it is. What's the message? What would you say? Like, hey, would it be persistence? Would it be, keep that fight, the drive? What would it be that you think helped you get through all that? What helped you get through all that and succeed?
Honestly, when I go through the relationship, the first few years, I wanted to end this relationship when I was still in Bulgaria. Before I even leave the country, it was so bad, so toxic. When I started dating her, she asked me, when she revealed the secret about the kid. It was a 2 years old daughter. And she asked me to not leave her without um, leaving some way for her and her daughter to be together, because they were practically separated. The kid was with that other, with her father's parents, and it was a very very toxic place. That guy was a drug addict and alcoholic almost. The parents were really bad, so the kid was traumatized from the whole breakup situation that's been happening. And for me to let that happen again, that would have been really bad for that kid. Forget the mom, I hated the mom anyway. So but the kid didn't deserve that, and I think that kid was one major reason that did not let me give up or quit midway and just looking for my own interests. So if you think in someone else's point of view, it was something external that was more important than me. A few years struggling wasn't worth destroying a kid's life. So I said, I took the responsibility and I will deal with it. The other reason was that I didn't want to die, because I actually wanted to end my life in a few occasions. It was that depressing. I didn't want to see my mother cry on my grave. That's to put it very, very plain and simple, that sentence, that image, it just was like, I'm
Yeah,
not quitting. I don't know what I'm going through, but I'm not quitting. And
sure.
I have no idea if I'm going to go through it, but I'm just not quitting.
That's interesting. Some of the most powerful reasons anybody does anything is for someone else, right? And I think
Mhm.
in both of these cases, you gave two examples, but in my opinion, you gave two examples of how you were doing it for somebody else, your mom and the child. And so
Yeah.
it's really interesting. And that also leads me to think about personal responsibility, because you can't really be successful at anything until you take personal responsibility. And I feel like you did that in choosing to do the right thing for two other people. So good for you. I think that's amazing. And that's a great story,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people are, like you said at the beginning of the call or the show, everybody's dealing with something. And so, there's a lesson there for everybody, which is, maybe your situation is worse, maybe it's not as bad, but you can take something away that it can be done. You can succeed. You just have to stick with it.
Yeah, ultimately, now I believe in God, and I know that whatever obstacle He puts in our way, it's for a reason there, and He definitely doesn't hate us. He definitely doesn't want to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make us stronger. That's for sure a message that I want to give to everyone. Whatever doesn't kill you, it's going to make you stronger. And if you look in the past, in stories of the Bible, and not just the Bible, but other stories that we know, people sometimes go through crazy, intense, and scary situations. Like what I did is nothing in comparison to other people. Some people get born without legs, without arms, or blind, or they go
Mm-hmm.
to jail and all sorts of shit. But still, God finds a way to use them for good. So whatever is happening in your life, you have no no option to quit. And I think you put it very rightly. It's about the responsibilities. It's something I believe in, and I actually do talk about it. When somebody works with me, when somebody comes to work with me, some of the most important questions that I ask is, why are you doing this? Why do you want to get fit? Like, and that's not a shallow question. That's the most important question. If you don't have a deep enough reason, if they don't associate their own health with the responsibility of caring for their family and being around their kids for longer, then there's something broken in their mind that I want to fix. We have responsibilities towards us and towards the people we live with, the ones who look up to us and the ones who love us, and many more,
For
maybe.
sure. Agreed. So now we're in present day, and you have you're a coach and you help people stay fit. Let's talk a little bit about your business, and let's talk a little bit about fitness. So how did you start in the beginning? Because we know we have a lot of entrepreneurs that will listen to this. How was it starting your business? What were the toughest things? How did you overcome getting your first couple clients? How did that take place?
The way I started, I firstly dedicated the rest of my life to this sports thing, and I decided I'm not gonna quit. So ultimately, that makes me um, expert enough to start teaching people who haven't gone the way I've gone. So, 1, 2 years further down the line, you become good enough to teach others how to do exactly the same thing. And I think that's the initial starting point. You gotta be able to do something. Like you either have to sell something, or you have to serve with your services, um, or
I
maybe
love
trade.
that.
You still have to be good at trading. Yeah. Um,
I love what you said. I have somebody. Do you know who Ed Milet is?
no,
He's
sorry.
actually he's really actually super in shape, but he has a podcast. He has a show. But anyway, he said something once that was what you just said. You are the most qualified in life to help the people you used to be,
Uh-huh.
and that's exactly what you're just saying. So I love
Yeah,
that.
that's how it started. That's how it started, and I still think it's going in a similar way. Most of my audience and clients are older than me because I'm still 33 years old. Most people are at the age of 40 or 50, but it's just the case of that's when this kind of shit happens to them. To
Mhm.
me, it happened earlier. to a lot of people happens at a later age, and it's even
Yep.
worse than if you don't have the skills. Yeah, it can be very tough, and that's why I have clients and a business, because these people do need my help. So yeah, that's one. Then how I started my first, and how I started the business, and how I got my first clients. That was from throwing a lot of shit at the wall and seeing what sticks really, and learning. I got involved, luckily, into Clubhouse. Clubhouse was a social media platform where
Hmm.
it was audio only, and I got into it about 6 months since it was launched. And at that time was mid-COVID, or just beginning of COVID actually, and
Yep.
it was mental. It was obsessive, addictive place that you don't want to live. And we spent over 12 hours every single day inside. Even as I was working as a cab, I was still listening to that thing all the time. Inside, I met a lot of people, a lot of business experts, a lot of rich people, a lot of experts from my industry, and I started a community as well. And I think me surrounding myself with all these more successful people, much more successful people, I learned what to focus on. That was a key to my progress. I learned what will make me stand out, and I decided on my business model. So for me, it was just the most logical step after learning more about business to start selling higher ticket programs. It's not crazy high, but it's more than a gym membership or just selling a training plan. I wanted to work with people long term. So that was the whole concept. And my service at the beginning was to solve the actual problem. The whole business idea, it was about solving the same problem for people. What is the problem? The problem is people who are unfit, who need to get fit again, who have a lot of responsibilities in life, maybe problems in relationships or business. It's a bit crazy that time. They don't know how to start. They don't have the time. They have health conditions and all sorts of shit. So for me to actually help somebody like that, it wouldn't work with just a training plan. I was very honest with myself. I think being honest with yourself, being realistic, is a key. So I didn't look into like what other personal trainers are doing, because if I look at them, they don't solve the problem. They are mostly just selling the hours, maybe selling some nutrition plans or training plans, and sending people on their way. I realized that this does not solve the problem, and that's the key to my business and to the success, and it still is. Does it solve the problem? So what I decided to do is to be super proactive. I started going to people's houses. I was driving there twice a week to everyone's houses. The first client I've got from word of mouth from a friend. The first client was my friend's client, and then my client's friend was my second client, and it was a lot of that word of mouth at the beginning,
Hmm.
and then slowly I built up online, and it was always about me delivering and fixing the problem. And one thing I've noticed that is super, super important, especially for young entrepreneurs, people who just start in business right now, we tend to want to find a perfect service and perfect product and something that's scalable, because we know that's very important for business. It's important to be scalable. It's important to be easy and efficient to produce and deliver. And we tend to stop there. And what you will realize if you stay long enough in the game is that there's no perfect service and there's no perfect product. That regardless how good your product and service is, it's absolutely never going to be perfect if you just sell it on its own. You have to step in, especially in the first years. And I think that's what helps me stand out. You're a human being with this intellectual senses. You are able to get out of your way and sort the problem when problem appears. When problems appear in my coaching practice, regardless in what front is it marketing, is it clients, I have to get out of my own way and solve it. I'm not gonna charge my clients for that. If I have to, I would find a way to do it in the right way. If they need some extra support, I will go out of my way to give them that support. And that's such a key. You are selling a product, you are selling a service, and then you realize they're not happy because of that, or they just need extra motivation, they need the communication with you, they need you to help them set up the service, and you say that's not included in the price. That's exactly what a lot of people do, and
Mm-hmm.
then they wonder why their business doesn't grow. I never said that's not included in the price. I've worked hundreds of hours for free. So many times I worked for free until I learned how to deliver the service in an efficient way, so I don't have to work for free anymore. And I still sometimes do. I still am that factor that makes this coaching practice something special, because I go out of my way.
So it sounds like what you're saying is you do whatever you have to do to help the client solve the problem they have, sometimes for free until you learn how to do it to charge them. But in the beginning, you just make sure you can deliver whatever service they need and you get better in the process. Is that what I hear?
Yeah,
Okay.
I say that I'm going to deliver a solution, and I bloody make sure I do that. I don't
Yeah.
sleep. I will deliver
Yeah.
the solution.
I love it. I love it. So, and so you have this practice that you've slowly built. Tell me about any other important pieces along the way in the business. I heard you say online. So, is that something one of your strong suits, or how do you find it difficult to find new clients online, and how is that going for you?
At the moment, it's not difficult for me anymore, but it was. And I still have my challenges, but I don't need to worry about paying the bills. So I can allow myself to be more creative, to spend some more time fine-tuning things and just fixing the problems. But getting online in my industry, that's a very tough thing to do, especially when you come from a background like me where I did not have the
Yeah,
body or the knowledge or anything. I was kind of new. When I started, I wasn't in shape at all. I was fat. You can see photos of me, fat and skinny fat, in fact, which is worse. So I had nothing, and me getting on top of that industry and starting to sell my services is still a challenge if I have to compare myself to some of the leading influencers, for example. I'm not an entertainer and none of that, so it's very hard. The way to do it is just keep getting better in everything.
yeah,
Observe what you need to improve on and just keep getting better, I think.
love that.
Um, and
That's true.
make sure you speak to the right people. I think that's something I spend a good few years to identify what is my ideal client avatar. Like, who is that? I mean, I probably had it written down exactly the same thing that I have written down now, like 4 or 5 years ago, as an ideal client avatar. In text, in saying it's exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
But then actually using that language for that person, I don't know
That's
why
the
it's so
key.
tricky,
That's the
man.
key.
That's the key. But if you do it, and I noticed in my marketing that I kind of started doing this lately and much better than before,
Hmm.
and then it just works so powerfully. My closing rate jumped to over 80% immediately as I fine tune just the way I present myself, the message, how the message goes, who you're speaking to.
I
People
think that's
now are
so important.
liking
That's a
me,
very
trusting me.
nuanced thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it takes a very skilled person to identify that for you, or you have to spend a lot of time practicing and
Yeah.
doing it until you figure it out. It's not something you can just as pull out of nowhere and just do it. Like, I used to think that it's this way. I used to think it works this way because everybody was telling me, all you have to do is just identify your ideal client and just speak to them. Okay, everybody's
Yeah.
speaking to exactly same ideal client, and I'm
That's right.
thinking, okay, I'm gonna do like everybody else, and then nothing happens, and I'm like,
So to wrap this section up with a bow, it sounds like, hey, I kept pushing and I was able to meet some people and get a client through a friend. And then I just got referrals through my people that I knew. So it was like a lot of referrals. And then you started, once you could cover the bills, started to advertise online, take a little more risk, do a little more here and there. And you kind of started over time to notice who is your ideal client, and you're speaking directly to them through all your marketing sources so that
mm.
you get high conversion rates because you're speaking to them, you're solving their problem.
That's the gist of it. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's years in making.
Yeah,
I did
that's
spend
overarching.
money
Yeah.
in coaching. Yeah, I spend like a good amount of money in coaching for business, right? So they taught me stuff. I've been surrounded by business people. So you gotta learn to listen. And to be honest, there is a big lesson here for the listener. Um, I used to believe that everything that people were pushing to me online, those type of messages and posts and ads that pop on your screen selling you something. I kind of had the belief that most of it is scam and it doesn't work. Um, that was a big mistake. That was a big mistake because yes, there is a hell of a lot of scam and hell of a lot of people who want to just take your money. But if you're not listening to them and you're not exploring what everybody has to say, you'll never find out the things that you don't know that you don't know. You have more blind spots than you know. And one of the big keys was me listening and learning from people. And the more knowledge I started gaining, the more I started listening. I realized everybody can speak something important to me. There was a case with one guy from Pakistan. He was a great appointment setter for me, and he made me a lot of money, and we had a good relationship. But then we just had to stop for various reasons. But he came to me from LinkedIn, and that guy sent me some super templated message how he can do this and this, some magics. Um, most people would just ignore it, including myself. But I thought, you know what? My business is struggling. Maybe I don't know something. Maybe I really have to start listening. And I spoke with him, and he told me how he does it. And I was like, okay, let's give it a try. And it worked. And then we scaled it, and we ended up sending such a huge volume of messages, booking so many calls, and just developing my business and allowing me to get to the next level. And that was a guy who wanted to work for me for free at the first month because I didn't believe what he has to sell me. I told him, you prove me that you can do it, and I will take you. And he did. And I took him and I paid him well after that. So information comes from everywhere, and especially
Yeah,
these places. Don't underestimate people who just don't have a big brand or big business. They often have very good nuggets that
that's a
can
really
change the
good
game for you.
message. That's a really good message. And I think that's very true. I think in this day and age, though, you're right. We're now becoming programmed to just ignore everything we see because we get hit with so much. We don't believe it. It's like, okay, sure thing, because they promise the world and they don't deliver. But I think you're right. You have to be able to sift through all that. And there are people that care. There are people that are telling the truth and they can deliver. So I think that's a great message.
Mm.
So we've got through part 2. What about part 3, which is let's talk a little bit about fitness before we wrap up. Let's talk about, obviously we're not going to get to all of it, but if you had to say, hey, here's the top 5, if you're talking about fitness, what should people be paying attention to? Obviously they'll be able to find you after this. We'll put the links to you and in your sites or anything you want us to direct them to, but what do you think people should be most aware of when it comes to fitness? I have my thoughts, but you're the expert. So, let's hear what you think people should be paying attention to first and foremost to make sure that they can be as fit as possible.
I think that let's start with the fundamental truth that fitness is necessary. Fitness is absolutely necessary. Let's stop living with the illusion that we can be healthy and live healthy and happily for the rest of our life and never step into the gym. Let's just throw this out of the window because it doesn't exist. It really does not. And the mistake that people do is they live with that illusion. They think that they can run their business for 20 years, build a success, and get fit later. And by that time, we already have diabetes, which really fucks up your life. You have other health conditions, arthritis. Things can get really ugly. So fitness is absolutely necessary for anyone to do. And if you can't find the time, then you need to find a way to find the time. It's not an option. Now, then we fall into the big trap of not knowing what information to apply, what is the truth, and how to actually apply the information. That's where my coaching steps in. Anyone's coaching can step in if it's a good coach. There is a lot of information out there. And when you start looking into solutions for dieting, for training, you will bump into all sorts of that and all sorts of promises. People who just believe in their way and they are very hyped up and they're sharing with you their way. First of all, you don't even know probably what is hypertrophy, what is strength, what is endurance, what is mobility. And you look at a hypertrophy bodybuilder and you're trying to get strong and fix your joints problems, and you're running a business and you're trying to apply his advice. This shit is not going to work. It's going to consume your time and it's not going to solve a problem. So to identify what you need to apply, it's very hard, and I will give you some advice here, some things, and one of them for sure will be find a coach if you can, somebody who can guide you through in kind of implementing this lifestyle into your life, these new habits. To become fit, to be fit all the time. Ideally, you want to become that person who can train, who can eat healthy, sleep well, manage your stress whilst running your business, maintaining your relationships, spending time with your wife, time with your kids, and everything else, going to church and so on. The list is individual to everyone, but everything else also has to be done. You can't pick and choose what to do and when to do it. You have to become that person that can do everything. And that's the scary truth for people, for everyone. And that's the most challenging thing. And it took me many years to develop in myself. After I started that journey when I was at 28, the first few years, it was a nightmare. I was working out twice a day at some point, working 12-hour shifts, living alone in isolation, eating boring food. I ended up burning out so many times. I ended up binge eating. I developed a eating disorder. I gained all the weight back. I messed myself up because what I was doing is I was applying knowledge that I don't know what it's all about. I was looking at people on YouTube, just the first guy that I liked, and I started applying. But that guy wasn't my coach. That guy was somebody who is out there trying to sell his theory for views and clicks and maybe products and so on. So find someone who can take you through the journey, and that's what I do. By the way, I'm starting a podcast which is already recorded first few episodes, which comes with a challenge, which actually takes people through these steps of identifying what is the next step for them, what is the lowest hanging fruit, and it's going to take people through the coaching process so they can implement this new lifestyle. And then a few tactical and practical tips. Identify what are the processed foods in your fridge, in your diet, what are the heavily processed foods that you're currently eating. This is number one thing. Eliminate them from your diet. You don't need them. Find whole foods that can replace them. They're usually much tastier and much healthier for you. It's not like you have to sacrifice something and you just have to shift from processed foods to whole foods. Processed foods are really damaging your gut, and they're just the source of evil in many cases. Find a way to exercise. Absolutely mandatory. It's not an option. You can't wait. It's never going to be a better time than now. The time to start is yesterday. So find a way to exercise and eat protein. Eat more protein in your diet. You apply these three things, like we can dive into the list and go on for ages. But I think we don't have time in this podcast. But if you apply these three things, you will definitely change. If you're somebody who is an average kind of attitude around health and fitness, you apply these things, wow. In a week's time, you will be like, I feel great. I feel energetic and actually enjoy training too. You will really change.
It's amazing. It's a tough conversation to have in a short amount of time because things are so off the rails in the industry, in our country especially. I was just reading something the other day or listening to something the other day where they said we're allowed to put, I could be off by a little bit, but it's pretty close to, we're allowed to put 10,000 chemicals on our food here in the United States, and in Europe it's only 400. And so it's, it's a real process. It's a real problem with processed foods. But I agree with everything you said. And sleep is probably one of the biggest, it is. It's one of the biggest things that people just ignore. Obviously, getting in shape matters. And what would you say for most people, you know, obviously everyone's going to have an individualized program and how much cardio and how much this, but would you say that, you know, I would say if you had to start somewhere and be simple, maybe just getting 7,000 steps in a day, but would you say like about 45 minutes a day for most people, just to at least do something of activity? What would you say?
If you have to lose weight, above 5,000 steps for sure. 7,000 is a good start. Push them to 10,000 if you can. That is going to help you maintain your metabolism, working at a decent speed throughout the day and burn a lot of the fat that you need to burn. But keep in mind that you're never going to burn it if you're not on a caloric deficit. So
That's right.
you see,
Yeah.
that's the problem now that we're having with this conversation is whenever I give some advice, then to make that information accurate and legit, I have to go down all the rabbit holes and alleyways and explain why is this information
Yeah,
legit.
exactly. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
that's what I was saying. Like anything you say, it doesn't matter until it's specific for that person. That's why when people come to me and they'll ask me these questions as a coach, I'll say, you know, I'm not a fitness coach, you are, but when we talk fitness, I say you really have to start with blood work. You really have to start inside because you really don't know anything until you inspect what's going on inside. And that also plays a role. And you have to tailor the plan to the individual. Some people need to lose weight, like you said. Some need to bulk up.
Mhm.
Some need to change their diet. Some, you know, it's like all this stuff. So it does get personalized.
It does.
So,
And yeah.
so this has been great info, and I appreciate you sharing your story. Where can people find you at if they want to know more about the health and they want to know more about what you would recommend? Where can they find you at?
So everywhere practically, if you go to pk.coach, so that's my website, www.pk.coach, very simple, straightforward. You can find all about me there and directly contact me if you need to. Now, there's a lot of things online, and you should keep your eyes open for the Limitless Body and Mind podcast. This is the name of the community that I had for years. I had it in Clubhouse. Now it's my clients community, and we now have a podcast. And that podcast is going to go into those rabbit holes that we didn't have the time to go to today. Every episode will take people from point A in their fitness journey to point Z, and we're going to be coaching, not just throwing information out there, but actually giving you practical steps. And with that, there will be a challenge that I set, which is going to help them do all this work on their own, like 4 weeks. All that is free of costs, what I'm saying. So it really game changing information. And obviously in social media. So if you're in any social media channel, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, you can type my name in there. I'm pretty sure it's going to come up.
Great. I love it. I love what you had to say, and I appreciate you sharing your story. And I'm sure that people will take a lot from this conversation. And we'll put everything in the show notes, everybody. So if anybody needs anything or has any questions, you can reach out. And I appreciate everyone watching and listening. All right, everybody. Until next time, talk to you later.